Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. As you can see the title of this video that I passed my NCLEX, and I'm so excited today to be sharing with you my NCLEX journey as well as the resources that I used to study for it. So let's get started. So just know that it's gonna be a long video and I have my notes with me to keep me accountable. Just so you know that I'm gonna be looking down sometime during this video to make sure I know what to say. So first, let's talk about my NCLEX journey. So I graduated from nursing school in December of 2021. I got my ATT, which is the authorization to test, about 2 to 3 weeks after I applied. So I registered for the exam in February. So I took my exam in February, got 145 questions, and I did not pass. So the first time I studied for the NCLEX, I used Uword because I was on TikTok and everybody recommended Uword. And a lot of people swear by that. A lot of people use Uword and they passed. Unfortunately for me, Uword did not work for me. I did not like their question format. I have to say that they have very good content for you to, review your content. However, the question format is too long and the format is nothing like the real exam. I sat for the NCLEX and I remember during the exam, I said to myself, oh my gosh, did I really pay $160 for Uword? And let me put this out there. This is just my personal opinion. I know that Uword works for a lot of people. However, it did not work for me. And I just want to put it out there that the first time when I used Uword to study for the NCLEX, I finished the entire question bank and I got 57%. My score was 57%. And then I did one self-assessment on Uword, and I got a very high chance of passing. Even though I got a very high chance of passing, I did not feel confident the day that I walked in for the NCLEX. So with Uword, I'm gonna show you what I did with the content that I've learned from Uword. Put them in this box. So I took a lot of flashcards when I used Uword. Every time I do a question, I would put them on a flashcard and then went back to it later. I have like a whole bunch of flashcards. I took so many flashcards when I use Uword to study. If you are a flashcard person, I recommend doing this because I feel like it's convenient if you go to the park, if you go on a road trip, you can take these flashcards with you instead of pulling out your computer because sometimes, you don't have Wi-Fi everywhere. So I recommend doing this. Otherwise, you can take notes in a notebook so you can carry it with you and review your note when you're free, when you have time. Unfortunately, Uword didn't work for me, and I didn't have the money to pay for it the second time when I took the NCLEX, so I bought Archer. So in December of 2021, I paid around $160 for a 60-day subscriptions on Uword. I think that they changed the price now. It's probably around $170 or more, I'm not sure. However, Uword has a little over 2,300 questions and I paid $40 for Archer for a 2-month subscription, 2 or 3 month subscription, I can't remember. However, Archer has over 2,800 questions, I think. And then with Archer, you have an option to create readiness assessment and CAT exam. So readiness assessment is similar to the self-assessment from Uword. Readiness assessment tell you your chance of passing the NCLEX, and CAT exam on Archer is an adaptive exam. So it can stop you at 75 and tell you if you pass or fail, or it can stop at 100 145, it can get up to 145 questions just like the NCLEX, and it will also tell you if you pass or fail your exam. I did not finish the entire question bank on Archer. I had about 50 questions left on Archer. I think my score was 55%. With 50 questions left on Archer. I did about 3 CAT exam on Archer. I got 75 questions every time, and I passed all my CAT exams. And then I did about 10 readiness assessments. I know that's crazy. So when I first started using Archer, I got some, I think about 2 of them, 2 readiness assessments that were low chance of passing, and one of them was borderline, and then the rest of them, 6 or 7, I got all high chance or very high chance of passing. I personally think it does not matter how high you score on Uword, on Archer, on the Princeton review. It is really important for you to study your rationales, because that's where you're going to learn the information that you need to take your NCLEX. So take your time, learn the rationales, write them down, and study them. So, and hopefully you will retain those information for when you go in to take your NCLEX. The next thing I want to talk about is Mark Clement's lecture. I've heard a lot about him from TikTok and on YouTube, and his lectures are amazing. However, I have to say that I did not listen to all of his lectures. I listened to his prioritization lecture, the hypothyroidism lecture, diabetes, modern baby, children development lecture. They were all amazing. However, I did not listen to all of them because they were really long, and I just cannot sit in front of my computer for 1 or 2 hours just to listen to that lecture. It just doesn't work for me that way. So I try to listen to at least 1 lecture a day. I believe that he has about 12 lectures, but I only listen to about 4 or 5, and then I always do the 1.5 speeds just so it's faster, because sometimes he talked to his student in the lecture. During the lecture, he explained, and he also told people stories, so it can take a long time to get through his lecture. Another resource that I used is the NCLEX High-U podcast. So I love those podcasts because I can listen to them when I'm driving somewhere, or sometimes I drove myself to the park and just sit in my car and listen. So I was devastated the day that I found out I failed the NCLEX. I was crying on the phone with my fiance, and it actually took me about 3 weeks to pick myself up again and study for the NCLEX. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to my online friend Laura. Thank you for sending me motivational YouTube video every single day. Even though I have never met you, you were amazing for always encouraging me, telling me that one day I'll pass the NCLEX and become a nurse. So the second time that I took my NCLEX, I used many resources to study for it. So I used Archer, the Princeton review, the Saunders NCLEX review book, the ATI comprehensive book, and videos from Registered Nurse RN and Symbol Nursing, as well as using my whiteboard to write down information and study. So I'm gonna insert a video of my Archer notes here. But what I do with Archer is I would take notes every time I do a set of questions. I think it's very important for you to go over your rationales for every single question, because For me, I retain information that way, and I either write down the rationale on my notebook or type them on my on a Word document and then print them out later. And then for the Princeton review, I heard about Princeton review from one of my classmates. Nikki, if you're watching this video, thank you so much for recommending the Princeton review to me. So if you don't know about a Princeton review, they purchase question from the NCLEX, which is the maker of NCLEX. They are more affordable compared to Uword. I think with $100 or $150 you can get a 1-year subscriptions. However, the Princeton review does not have picture in their rationales like Uword or Archer. Archer doesn't have that many picture in their rationale like Uword. However, they have some picture in their rationale. But the Princeton review does not have any picture in their rationales. However, the rationale is very straight to the point. And I love the Princeton review question. I think it's worth it to get it because they purchased all question from the maker of NCLEX, so why not? And I have to say that out of all of the resources that I use for the NCLEX, Princeton review, it's the best. However, I don't recommend using the Princeton review by itself. You have to use the Princeton review with something else, either with Archer or Uword. Do not use Princeton review by itself. It's not enough. I'm going to put a link down below for the Princeton review. I think right now you can get a 5-day free trial. So you can check that out and see if it works for you. But I really love the question format because again, they purchase all question from the NCLEX-RN, which is the maker of NCLEX. And the next thing I want to talk about is this Saunders NCLEX review book. And I have to say that I did not read the entire book because it's just not realistic. What I do with this book is I go over the section that I wasn't confident with. For example, maternity. And I think it's perfect to do it that way. And then when you are doing your questions, for example, on Uword, Archer, or on the Princeton review, and you come across a question that you don't know, don't be afraid to look it up either on Google or in the book or any other resources that you have. It's not cheating, it's called learning. You can pause your exam, look it up, and then go back and answer that question. I recommend doing that because you're learning more that way. So I'm going to give you an example of how I used this book to study. I'm going to insert the video here, but I didn't mind using a highlighter in my book. I highlight everything that I need. So yeah, that's how I study, but I did not read the entire book. It's crazy. This book is very thick. You can also download a free PDF version of this book. I'm gonna put the link down below in the description box for you. You don't have to purchase it on Amazon. You can just download it to your iPad or your computer. If you have an iPad, that's perfect. You can put it on your iPad and highlight it while you're reading it. And I just want to show you how crazy my book looks. I used a lot of sticky notes that you can see here. There are so many sticky notes in my book. It's crazy. Another resource that I use is the Comprehense ATI Comprehensive NCLEX-RN review book. So this book was provided to me by my school. I think it was included in my tuition, but whatever. Just like what I did with the Saunders NCLEX review book, I went over areas that I was not confident with, and then I also used sticky notes to label them. So it's easier for me to find them later when I need to go back to review. And don't be afraid to highlight your book. I didn't even care at all. I needed to study, so I went all in. And I have to say that I did not read the entire book. It's just impossible. So I purchased this whiteboard from Amazon. I loved it. I live in an apartment and I don't have a lot of space for a big board, even though I would love to have a big board. But whenever I finished a set of questions, I would write the rationale on my board, like simplify the rationale and then write it on my board. I love doing it this way because it helps me to retain informations, and before I erase my board, I take a picture of it and to make sure that I have this information somewhere in my phone or my iPad, and so I can go back later. And then I will start over with a new set of questions. If you don't have a whiteboard at home, I recommend writing your rationale in a notebook and then go back later and review your rationale. Or you can also type them out. And here are some of my tips before you go in for the NCLEX. If you have exam anxiety like me, work on your anxiety. I remember that the first time I took the NCLEX, I had crazy anxiety about the exam. Plus I had an interview a few days before my exam, so my head was already crazy and I wasn't in the right state of mind to go in for that exam. I would never do that again. If you need to reschedule your exam, reschedule it. Don't feel the pressure from the people around you. Don't be like, oh my gosh, all my classmates already took the NCLEX, they are already nurses, while I'm over here studying for this exam. You do you. You have your own timeline to shine. So don't worry about other people, but focus on you. Your time will come. And if you need to reschedule your exam. Don't come in when you are not ready. And then the next thing is, if you are tired of studying at home, I recommend you to study outside of your home. For example, during my last few weeks of studying for the NCLEX, I drove myself to a park and I sat in my car and I brought my Saunders review book with me, and I sat in my car and studied. Sometime I went to Starbucks, sometime I went to the library or the park, and then it doesn't help to sit in front of your computer for 8 hours a day. It's not good for the mind. And then another thing is, I recommend doing a set of 20 to 25 questions every time. Don't overwhelm yourself and do a set of 75 questions in one sitting. And another thing that I recommend you to do is self-care. I think it's very important for us to take good care of ourselves before we go in for the NCLEX. You can treat yourself. I don't care what it is, a cup of Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, smoothie, whatever it is, your favorite food or whatever. Treat yourself. You've been studying really hard, you've come this far, you graduated nursing schools. You deserve it. And another thing is, I don't recommend sitting in front of your laptop, your computer, 8 hours a day to study for the NCLEX. Take a break. Do one set of questions, take a 5-minute break, and then come back, or study for 2 hours and take a 30 minutes break and then come back. Sitting in front of your computer, your laptop all day, it's not going to help you. It's not good for the mind. Get out of the house for at least 1 hour a day if you can. I think it's better when you take good care of yourself, when you're not stressed. I know studying can be really stressful, but as long as we take it easy on ourselves, don't be too hard on yourself, you will be able to pass this exam. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions for me, please comment below your question and I will try to answer them as soon as I can. Thank you so much.